Anyone ever eaten milkweed before? No? Okay. Well, it's a entirely edible plant. Okay, this one next to it is pokeweed. This is a pretty nice edible too. This is actually one of my favorite edibles, but it's not, neither of these are particularly edible raw, especially this one, which is pretty poisonous raw. But maybe you've heard of Poke Salad Annie, the old Elvis Presley song. Anyhow, this girl goes into the woods and picks this. I don't really know what the song is. I haven't really listened to it that much. But this is the plant. This is easy to identify once these flowers that are emerging turn into these purple red berries that get all over everybody's t-shirts and hands when you're a little kid around here. Bird berries, you know, they're very, very bird berry like, and they actually used them to sign the Declaration of Independence because it's a very like strong ink. And they apparently used to fortify wine to make it a little redder and more robust looking. So they're not completely, you know, toxicity is a scale, right? But anyhow, no one eats the berries. Birds do, but people don't. But the plant itself, when it shoots up in the springtime, it's about this tall or so. That's when you gather it and boil it for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then get rid of the water and eat the plant. It's really good.
Is it the stem too, or just the
when the plant's about this tall, that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
And you just take the whole thing, stem, leaves, yep. And you can do it right now. I mean, I did it the other day because I was leading a tour and we were going to eat afterwards, and there wasn't a ton of stuff we found, so I grabbed some of this and boiled it up and we ate it.
What's it taste like?
What's it boiling? You take like the tannins out? Or
Yeah, it removes this chemical called phyllo something that's in this plant that's particular to this plant and toxic.
Is it native?
Yeah.
What's it taste like?
It's kind of like an irony, spinach, sourness to it. It's great. They used to produce it commercially in the South, but they found it hard to cultivate. I think the seeds have to pass through a bird's stomach in order to germinate, so it was difficult to cultivate this plant. So, yeah, you can eat it. You can eat it. I don't recommend eating a lot of it raw because the plant should be cooked before you eat it in large quantity. But yeah, you can eat the flowers. At this stage, I usually grab these and I call it that's another identifying feature of milkweed. Before it sends these out, it's a little harder to identify, but you can always rip a leaf and you'll see a lot of milky latex in there. That's why it's called milkweed. That's a pretty good ID for it. Anyhow, the broccoli phase, which is exactly what broccoli is. It's an unopened flower bud. So it's the same botanically. There I go.
Are you talking cooked or uncooked?
Cooked. So you boil this for 5 minutes or so. You know, parboil it basically, and then maybe saute it or put it on pizza. It's pretty fun. It doesn't taste like broccoli. I don't think it's a little bit just more bland than broccoli. But all these different, it's all good anytime, anywhere. You can eat the leaves if you want.
The ones that are green or not, are the ones that have turned color.
Are they still greens?
Which is, I mean, is that kind of like not ripe?
Yeah, it's kind of like they're turning color because they're getting ready to open up and more chemicals are being exposed.
Is
Is this a superfood?
It doesn't matter. I mean, nutritionally it might matter a little bit, but I don't think
it doesn't matter what time of the year you're talking about?
So yeah, this plant is one of those plants that like gives different products throughout the year. So when it first shoots up in the spring, you get the stems, the shoots like asparagus, just like this. So 2 months ago, these plants were both about this high, and that's when you get them. Now you get the new growth. When they turn into milkweed pods, you eat those. So it gives a lot of food. Small milkweed pods. When they get too big, they're very stringy. It's a weed. It's easy to identify because of that sort of brown patch. You see how the leaf has a splotch on it? And there's also down there, right by your feet.
Oh
very prominent sort of stain right there.
Yeah.
That's called lady's thumb. Okay, I think of it as like a thumbprint. That's a very obvious one. It's often more visible in the rain. And this is a decent enough green to throw into a soup or something like that. It's not very good by itself. I don't go after it, but it's easy to identify. So it was one of my early plants. I put it in my book because I have a book that I'm going to try to sell to 10 of you. Because it's so easy to spot, you know. There's nothing else like that. So I just don't forage it a ton anymore because it's not the greatest tasting plant. It doesn't taste bad. Anyhow, this is wood sorrel, and this one you should try because it's really nice and sour, like very nice. So if you're on a foraging tour, you got to try some of these things. Goosefoot, and this is like if you learn one thing today, this is the absolute my favorite green, bar none. Favorite wild green, probably my favorite green. If someone said, what's your favorite green? I think I'd say lamb's quarters. So identification of it, it's called, one name is goosefoot because the shape of the leaf is kind of look like a web foot of a goose, right? Most of the time, it's all over the place here. Another identifying feature is, you see how it's a little bit whiter in the center? There's like a white blush to it or something. That's like a crystalline substance that the plant exudes. So under a microscope, you'll see little crystals, oxalate, I think it's called. It's probably an insect repellent, herbivore repellent, but it doesn't stop us because this thing is great. If you saute this up with garlic and salt and oil, you're good to go. And it's a really nice spinach substitute. You can also eat it raw, and I recommend grabbing a piece and eating it raw.
Is that the same as this?
All mints have
Pretty
a
cool.
square stem.
Anyone who's had a vegetable garden anywhere around here in their life has probably pulled up this stuff a ton. This highly nutritious, good food crop called purslane. And y'all should try it. It's great. It's high in omega-3s, so if you're a vegan or something and you want to get your omega-3s from a vegetable, this is the one. Go get in there and try that. Purslane. Amaranth. So it's a very common garden weed, a little harder to identify, but the red root gives it away. This is what I call pigweed, and this is also edible. It's kind of like lamb's quarters, although I don't like it quite as much, but I do use it in the same way as a spinach substitute. That's called quickweed, and that's another perfectly good saute soup green. Easy to identify because of that yellow-white flower. This guy, I call it kind of the Pac-Man plant. It kind of has a little bit of a Pac-Man look to it, right? That old video game from the 80s. It's called common mallow, and it, again, is just edible. You can eat it and put it in salad. It's nothing flashy like arugula, but it totally goes down, no problem. The flowers and the seeds and the fruits are all good to eat from that plant.
It has the red bottom, so it's pigweed, right?
That's what I call that pigweed, yep.
Yeah.
Or I call it amaranth. 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 Yep. Mm-hmm. Oh, when it violets, you would recognize them a month and a half ago when they had the little purple flowers out there. Violets are entirely edible also.
Really?
So you can
The leaf and the flower.
The leaf and the flower, yes.
Wow.
You can eat, and the leaves are distinctively kind of curled up in the lower part of the leaf margin there.
I have some in my.
Except for what? Except for the sorrel, none of them have a really dramatic taste, but that's okay. I mean, salads are like. This is not a great edible, but you can eat this too. And it just, the bounty never stops out here.
That's the one with.
Is this part of that?
Narrow
leaf plantain.
What about those things? Are they edible?
You can eat them too.
It's good for cuts. Chew it up and put it on cuts.
That- Because that's the only time it's tender. It's called the dryad saddle. Dryad is like a forest creature, dryad, and it looks kind of like a saddle. So the idea is this wood nymph or creature sits atop that. And it first shoots out, it's about this big. It's got this like saddle point like curvature to it, like a Pringle, and it's pretty good edible at that point. I've tried to eat them at this stage. I'm like, well, it's still edible. It's just tough now, but it's like eating leather. This is mugwort, and people use it as a tonic for skin cleansing and whatnot. Some cultures eat it in the springtime when it's smaller. It's got a very. It's worth making a cup of tea with it. You might like it. If you do like it, you're in luck because it's a very, very common weed, especially on the roadsides. It's very mugwort. Mugwort. Famous hated invasive species. Too bad because it is a pretty plant, but no one likes it anymore because it really took over, and it's really, really hard to get rid of. And it's edible. In the springtime when these shoots come out, and it's still, see right now it's not soft at all. It gets very fibrous as the year progresses, and it turns into wood by the end of the year. That's last year's knotweed. It's wood.
Yeah.
No one wants to eat wood. But when it first shoots out, it's pliable and sour, and rhubarb substitute. So I pickle it. Hot spicy pickles, good, and also use it like rhubarb. So strawberry rhubarb pie with knotweed is good, but everyone hates it. Very different forms depending on how old it is. This is the same plant. It's actually interesting too because the leaf shape totally changes shape, right? That leaf is triangular and very angular, and this is very circular. So looking at, but the venation pattern is similar. So the leaf app, when it takes a picture, kind of ignores the details except for that meshing webbing structure, and it identifies the plant correctly.
Looks like mullein, doesn't it?
It looks like what, mullein?
Mullein.
Oh, you know, I guess if you squint your eyes, not to me, but I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning lots of plants look like other plants, but then as you get better at it. What do I want to say about this? Who's eaten it before? Yeah, what do you think? You like the taste?
Found it more when it's older, and I found it like just kind of neutral.
Yeah, neutral. I've never heard anyone describe it as neutral. If you try a young leaf back here, I recommend it. It's pretty like powerful. Garlic and mustard is a pretty good descriptor of it. So, oh, come on, try it again.
What's it called again? Garlic?
Garlic mustard.
Garlic mustard.
Is a very good edible.
But not the leaves.
The leaves have this bitterness coating them entirely, and they are absolutely disgusting. It's a 2-year plant. I know I'm sort of like, I usually walk more, but it's so rainy out. I'm just babbling. Sorry, I'm talking too much. This is a 2-year plant, so its life cycle is over the span of 2 years, like a carrot, like a wild carrot, Queen Anne's lace. The first year, it builds up a big root, okay, and that's the root that you eat. In the second year, it shoots up the flower stalk, which you can also eat. You have to peel it first, and then flowers and turns into those burrs that stick to you. You know those things that stick all over your dogs?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
this guy.
So this is the same burdock that they sell in the Japanese
Yeah,
market?
this is it. Gobo. Yep.
Gobo, okay, yeah.
Yep.
Joe plyweed. It's not edible, but it's medicinal.
This is not poison ivy, so that's fine. Leaves are 3, sometimes reddish when they first come out, but then they turn greener. The leaf margins, the sort of perimeter of the leaf are, sometimes they're uniform, sometimes they have like little notches in them, like little irregularities. Sometimes they look a bit like a maple leaf or something like that, so they're a little bit unusual. Probably the best feature for this is the fact that, yes, it's leaves of 3, but the middle leaf has a much longer petiole, that part, the stem of the leaf. The other ones are connected really short, like right connected to each other. So you'll see that on each of them. See that one? So that's a very good, like,
Poison ivy.
you know,
Good to know.
good to know. And this is its like low-lying version, but when it starts to creep up a tree, it'll actually come out and look like a branch. But you'll still be able to see that leaf pattern. That's persistent.
Poison ivy.
You know, showed up from some farm, and it's pretty cool to see wild asparagus. If I lived in Needham, I'd probably come here in the spring just to get one little stalk and say because I found wild asparagus that I could eat once in my life, and it's a sort of a forager's, like, because Yule Gibbons has the book from the 60s called Stalking the Wild Asparagus. It's like, for me, it's like a unicorn, you know, it's like you gotta find it's a beautiful plant too.
It's too late to eat it, right? It's too big.
Too late to eat it. Yeah. I'll have a bite though. And you can eat. I had a class at BU the other day in a culinary. I did a class with the culinary, ethno-botanical culinary class that Meta Davis teaches over there. We made little fritters with these, so you dipped them in batter and fried them up. You can't really taste the plant at that point, but it's a good excuse to have a fritter.
Does this make a berry?
Yeah, these will all turn into berries. So unlike the milkweed, which I said like each one of those probably won't turn into but these all turn into berries.
Are the berries edible?
Come to think of it, the milkweed pod is full of seeds. I gotta look up that. Okay, the berries are edible, yeah.
And are they good?
They're kind of thought of as like medicinal.
Oh, okay.
You know, I've made a ketchup with them, which is kind of interesting, elderberry ketchup. And I do eat them because they're supposed to be good for you. I don't love the taste of them, but yeah, come back
Is that
here.
like the elderberries that they have out west?
Yep.
So is it just the flowers and berries that are edible?
Mm-hmm.
Not the leaves.
Not the leaves. 2-year plant. Early spring, it's edible. When the root is edible, it's okay. It's not great.
Is that alive or is that dead?
That's dead. That's dead. You can sometimes, if it's a dry day and it's fresh, you can get some of the black seeds out of there and eat them. Evening primrose oil is very expensive because you get it from the seeds and paint. Let's.
Wild carrots.
Snatch.
skunk weed. No, it's not. Skunk cabbage. Although I see why you would say that. So the whole plant is, well, this one's got a aphid infestation, but I'm not worried about that. They don't mind the bitterness. Okay. Yeah, this is a little bit tough too. I'm doing a bendable, you know, like when you have like asparagus and you get rid of that. That part's tough. There's probably enough on here that those who want to try a bite of. I mean, it's not like this plant is like the best tasting thing ever, but it's kind of cool to know that if you do take off the bitter part, which I'm what I'm doing right now, then you do have a good edible underneath. And I think it's a very good edible. Like, I sauteed it up with butter and salt the other day. I usually just eat it raw, but it was very good. So, if anyone wants a bite of burdock, you can have some. Everybody wants it.
The same plant that we saw over there?
Yeah. Yep. Another 2-year plant, and in the second year it shoots up the stalk. So.
This is the first year then?
No, the second year.
This is the second?
The second year, yeah.
There's a wild burdock stem. It looks like celery. You can eat it raw or cooked.
Look like raspberries, but
Oh, mulberries.
yeah, is that what these? I'm trying to figure out what are these.
Now we have a good snack. I always forget there's a mulberry tree here. Yeah, that's nice. So mulberries are just coming into, this one's just coming in, but grab the darkest berries you can find.
So yeah, there's no
There's actually-
thorns on these. So it's not like it's good blackberries.
Yeah, blackberries have thorns, and all the leaf shapes are, you have very, very different leaf shape on the same plant, which is a pretty cool thing. Armageddon people, you can eat the leaves also.
Do you eat them raw?
You can.
So do they have
Usually
like
earlier on. Now they're a little tougher.
it's like
now.
is it like sassafras? There's like 3 different shapes or
No, it's more just like, you know,
Very
very variable, all over the place.
Yeah.
More of the Armageddon, apocalypse, whatever it's for. But it's common reed, Phragmites. It's an invasive, and a lot of people hate it. It is a source of food if you're desperate. You can yank it up and eat it. It's pretty weird, but you're out there. And it's one for all for one, whatever. You'll be eating this Phragmites. You'll also be eating the cattails. Cattails would be a very good survival food. You would get down into the muck, and you would pull up the rhizomes, and you would get the starch out of those by drying them and beating them, or some wet method. The rhizomes are full of good starch of the cattails. Easier than getting into the muck is to just yank one up and eat this part, which is like a leek or something. It doesn't really taste like a leek, but it's kind of structurally a bit like a leek. So you peel it, get down to that core inner part there, and who wants to try it? Everybody, I think. Most people do. I'll get another one when this one's finished. It's not like you're not gonna be like, that's the greatest thing I've ever eaten in my life, but it's not bad.
So, the cattails too?
Cattails, yeah.
It's like the
that's
cattail, like
right.
inner
The
stem.
green, yeah, the green part is also the cattail. Yeah.
And later on,